Massive changes are coming to the anime industry, and whether you're happy about it or scared, Sony is going to be taking the charge. Without a doubt, anime is becoming more and more and more global and profitable by the day. Industry leaders are taking note and investing tons and tons of money into it. Of course, Sony has been a part of the anime industry for a long time. I mean, they have companies like Aniplex and tons of studios underneath them. But over the years, it has managed to swipe up pretty much every single big dog in the global streaming market like Crunchyroll and Funimation. Well, during a briefing, they have revealed that not only has that gamble paid off and they have lots and lots of more subscribers, but they're looking to focus their efforts more into the anime industry and even giving tools to animators both domestically in Japan as well as worldwide. This info comes to us from Otaku Soken through Yahoo News Japan, so let's just dive into it. The article reads, Sony develops its own anime production software and is eager to nurture creators. Overseas anime service Crunchyroll surpasses 13 million users. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. Okay, all of my arguments about Crunchyroll and Sony not paying its translators and whatnot very well, that has been thrown out into the garbage. Now, granted, being able to service 13 million users with streaming is very expensive, but at the same time, that whole idea of the money that's going into licenses surpassing the subscribers, that is eclipsed. We have officially eclipsed that, so it's probably still not going to happen. They're still not going to be paying the translators very well. Anyways, let's carry on. On the 23rd, Sony held its fiscal 2024 management policy briefing online. Representative Executive Chairman Kenichiro Yoshida and other related parties explained future developments. In the entertainment field, the presentations introduced the trends in each genre in the three phases of creation, nurturing, and expansion as current initiatives for maximizing IP value. In particular, for anime, in the addition to appealing to the creation and distribution of high-quality works by group company Aniplex, it was mentioned that the development of the company's own animation production software, Anime Canvas, is being undertaken as part of production efficiency measures. Okay, first of all, yes, I want to make it clear to people that do not know that, yes, Sony has been in the anime industry for a long time. Sony did not just pop up out of nowhere and say, hey, let's buy Crunchyroll and Funimation, let's start doing anime. No. It has had Aniplex in Japan and tons of studios under Aniplex that it has been working with. So they have been working on this stuff for a long time. So when it's talking about high quality works by a group company, Aniplex is talking about how Aniplex is technically doing a lot of the productions and whatnot for a lot of these properties that are coming out. They've been doing this for a long time. Now, this is a different thing here, and I believe they talked about this before. They're actually wanting to create an anime canvas software. And what this software basically is something they can use on tablets and whatnot for actually drawing and creating each of the frames of the anime itself. A lot of the tablets and whatnot will be using this software. I haven't actually looked into the software itself, so I'm not sure if it's something that is going to be a benefit to them. I'm sure it's going to be a benefit. That's what they're actually spending a lot of money on it for. But it is curious that this is something they're kind of putting their focus into in order to produce more anime, probably more efficiently or better. Like, I'm guessing whatever software they're using right now is not something they're not wanting to use. Now, it's a sad thing. They're really kind of putting this out as, I think it's been listed in, at least on the Yahoo site, the news site right here, as a proprietary software, something that they're trying to keep within themselves. It does talk about later on they're looking to, let other groups use it, but that is a sad thing there, because they're essentially wanting to make people focus on essentially locking them in. That's the stuff that kind of scares me when you have a company that's creating a software and it wants to kind of lock them in. I have worked with a lot of companies that have proprietary software, and a lot of it's due to security reasons and whatnot, or finding something that actually works for them perfectly. But when you have something that works broadly across a network, it kind of sucks to train and focus animators into using your software when they go to another company, they're going to have to relearn things and they're not able to use that software there. And it really kind of sucks, but it's their software. They make it. They spend money into it. They can do whatever they want with it. Continuing. The software is said to be under development in collaboration with Sony Group engineers, and in the initial stages of operation, it will be used within the group, starting with A1 Pictures and Cloverworks. Again, A1 Pictures and Cloverworks being under Sony. Animation Studios under Aniplex. It just says right there, Andrew. It literally clarifies it right there, Andrew. And the possibility of providing it to studios outside the company is being considered in the future. So at least they're considering the idea of letting others use it. And that's probably going to be under a very expensive license, or it could be under a cheap license. But I'm assuming it's probably going to be pretty expensive. The company aims to improve the production environment and efficiency and the quality of works through the development of proprietary software. I'm starting to wonder, with the emphasis on this software right here, with the idea that it will help productivity and whatnot, and they're wanting people to use it, I'm curious if it's going to be using a lot of AI. I would assume it is going to, but I don't have any proof of that. Because it makes you kind of wonder what kind of efficiency and whatnot will help them with it. Is it a better, more efficient running software? Is it smoother? Does it flow better? Does it work within a network or whatnot to provide that information to others better? Better ways of sharing it and collaborating? That's the question. I might look into it later on if they have any information on it and actually research it separately and make a separate video if there's anything interesting there. In terms of overseas expansion, it was announced the number of subscribers to Crunchyroll, an English language anime streaming service operated by the group's North American subsidiary, has exceeded 13 million. That is insane. Even taking into consideration that all of them are doing the North America, or at least US subscription of $8 a month, that's still like $104 million. Now, there's a lot of regions that does have Crunchyroll that cost of that sub is actually cheaper because it's kind of adjusted for the actual location, but that's still crazy. That is still a crazy number. Every month. That's crazy. Since Funimation, which had been providing anime video services, was acquired by Crunchyroll in 2020, Crunchyroll has been operated by the Sony Group. I think that's supposed to say since Funimation acquired Crunchyroll, because they were claiming that Funimation acquired Crunchyroll when it was in fact Sony, but still. The number of members was 5 million when the acquisition was completed in 2021, but that number has grown rapidly to exceed 12 million in just 2 years, thanks to factors such as exclusive distribution of popular TV anime, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. So at least they're admitting there that a lot of that has to do with pretty much one show. Let's be perfectly honest. Most people, the majority of anime viewers are watching just one show. That's a sad reality of the anime industry. That's why most of the streamings and a lot of the awards ceremonies, it's all just the same shonen, because literally people just sub and they watch one show. This time, the number of subscribers has grown by another 1 million to exceed 13 million. That is actually crazy to think about that. It literally went from 5 million, jumped up to 12 million, a jump of 7 million, pretty much factoring it to being Demon Slayer. And I'm sure they probably are looking at their statistics and they're looking at which shows are actually getting hits, and they're saying, yeah, it's all going here. And that's a massive amount just for really mostly just one show. But it is kind of a wake-up shock here to kind of note that they may have reached saturation by that number. Even still, they did increase it by another 1 million within the next year. That's that massive rapid growth with 2 years and then to come down to 1 million. Obviously, they're probably going to start to look at, okay, are we reaching saturation, or can we do something to get that same expansion like we did last time? While leveraging the group's strength in planning, production, distribution, overseas expansion, and secondary use of anime in a one-stop manner, the company has also indicated its intention to strengthen its nurturing efforts in the future, such as considering the establishment of an academy to nurture overseas anime creators in collaboration with Aniplex and Crunchyroll at its core. That's, I think, the part where a lot of people are getting a little bit uneasy about, because obviously when this kind of news got out, there was a few people kind of translating it and getting it out there so that people kind of knew the nitty-gritty of what was happening here. And what it's essentially saying is like, okay, we're seeing this massive growth in Crunchyroll as a platform in the West, or at least overseas, global distribution, that we're seeing a massive growth there. And in the end here, they're like, okay, we want to actually utilize what we currently have in planning and whatnot with like Aniplex in Japan and whatnot, where we essentially produce all these animes. Additionally, yes, the overseas expansion through the efforts through Crunchyroll, how Crunchyroll is pretty much distributing it. And we're wanting to kind of work on developing on that, strengthening it and nurturing it for the future. Now, key thing here is such as considering, this is a quote, considering the establishment of Academy. So they're basically just saying, we're thinking about doing it. This is literally just in the planning stages. They have considered doing this. And what they're basically talking about there is they're wanting to create some sort of academy that, and this probably could go in coinciding with this new software they're working on. Like I said earlier, this new software could have a lot of collaboration stuff and whatnot built into it, caked into it. And that could be for the sake of having people that are overseas work on a project, or at least having an academy to help them learn how to work on a project together. Again, make it perfectly clear, this might be a shock to people. There's a lot of overseas animators, and yes, unfortunately, a lot in China. A lot of production out of China. Not to say that China's bad for being able to do that, but it's very cheap labor. And my concerns in the past has been how a lot of this animation is just kind of leaving Japan and it's going elsewhere. So like you're watching Japanese anime and it's like it's not even Japanese anymore, so can you even call it Japanese? And that's just a nitpick. But there is a lot of people overseas, a lot of different regions, Europe and whatnot, that there's a lot of areas where there's a lot of animators. And so what they're wanting to do is kind of pull them in and nurture them to help them with the tools they need and to pull them in as future animators. Again, my concern there really is in how they're training them into a software ecosystem. Now that ecosystem can get more popular and expand outside of Aniplex and whatnot, but the fear still is there that this is something that's going to be pulling people in. Now, what I was surprised to see is that a lot of people were upset about this news coming out because they're afraid of Crunchyroll and they're afraid of Crunchyroll. And so when I read it, I was actually kind of happy that despite those concerns that people had, nothing in this briefing, or at least this report from this briefing, says anything to the effect that Crunchyroll's taking control. Because yes, even myself have been pretty concerned at the idea of how popular Crunchyroll is getting in the market globally, because there's a fear eventually that Crunchyroll will start to make the calls. Nothing in here says that. Nothing in here claims that Crunchyroll is taking control of anything. If anything, all this says is that Crunchyroll is making them a lot of money in distribution. And I think the hope there is, and it's my hope, and I'm still seeing it here, is that Crunchyroll remains just a distributor. Now, if they were to see Crunchyroll has 13 million users, and Sony were to go, okay, Crunchyroll, start controlling what we're making, that would make no sense. I would want to fire every single person in the Sony's departments in Japan if they ever thought that was the thing to do. Because all Crunchyroll is a distributor. All they're doing is feeding it to people. They're not creating what they're feeding to the people. So if Sony were to say, okay, you're making a lot of money, let's have you start making things, that wouldn't make much sense, would it? Because why Sony is essentially with 13 million users is like down here where it says Demon Slayer. What about Demon Slayer says Crunchyroll made it? What about Demon Slayer breaking them up to 13 million users says Crunchyroll knows what they're doing? Nothing. It just says they're distributing it. So I think that hopefully that will ease people's minds that none of this means that Crunchyroll is taking control of the anime industry. It's really just they're noting that Crunchyroll is obviously making them a lot of money distributing what Japan makes and what Japan is producing, stuff that is not touched by Crunchyroll. Again, I also agree with a lot of people. I've had fears for a long time that the anime industry has grown so much in the West that my fear was eventually that we'll have Sony do what they did with PlayStation. Sony PlayStation eventually became headquartered in California. And why they did that, though, was because Japanese producers and developers weren't really selling many copies. So they essentially gave it to North America, or at least California, United States, their department, because the Western games were making a lot of money. So they basically just gave it to them. You guys are doing really well. We're not doing very well over here. This is an opposite effect. With anime still, what is creating 13 million users is essentially what Japan makes that Crunchyroll is just handing to people. All Crunchyroll is doing is handing to people. But they're at least, yes, technically acknowledging here they want to put Crunchyroll and Aniplex at its core for overseas anime creators. Now, yes, this makes sense technically because Aniplex, I'm assuming Aniplex Japan right here, because typically they'll say Aniplex USA if they're talking about the US department. Aniplex Japan and Crunchyroll is essentially the two of them together is a very valuable asset when it comes to communicating to a lot of these creators, bringing those creators in. So Crunchyroll would be probably handling a lot of the English-speaking locations and maybe other language as well, whereas Aniplex over here in Japan, unless they have really good English speakers or other language speakers, they would probably be handling a lot of the Japanese groups, a lot of the Japanese artists and creators. Anyways, that's very interesting. That's it. That is the what came out of it. I'm not sure if maybe something more will come out of it. Again, this is just this group. Otaku Soken has made these notes to let people know what's going on there and what they kind of pointed out. Again, massive, insane growth. I guess congratulations to Crunchyroll. Congratulations to Sony. They're doing some crazy stuff, and they're providing what people want. And I think it's important to note that as long as they keep providing what people want, people will keep coming to them. And I think they've done that so far. Nothing has shown signs so far that anywhere that they're trying to get away from that. I know that there's a lot of concerns around translators and whatnot, but that's kind of just single people that are doing odd translations within the project, and Crunchyroll is failing to catch it as it comes through. It's not necessarily a sign of what Crunchyroll themselves is doing, but it's always important to keep an eye on them. I always tell people, while I'm not saying that they're the worst thing ever, I do agree with people to always keep a watchful eye to make sure they don't slip up. Keep them from that eventual point where they do slip up and we do start to see them meddling into things they really shouldn't. But so far, they're doing well. Sony in Japan is doing well enough to keep them in check, keep things flowing right, and if they keep doing that, the fans will keep coming. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know about this whole situation. What do you think of their expansion? What do you think of their growth and whatnot? Is it scary to you, or at the same time, is it something that you're excited about? Seeing that growth is technically a good thing. We're seeing more anime come out, hopefully better quality anime, but we'll see in the future. But additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, so thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate it, but it does. Take care.